Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Jaganjana Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Gidari Gaur Sai Jagad Bala Subhadra Giraj Maharaj ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Shri Gurudev Ji Gaur Bhaktavan Ji Gaur Prem. So again, I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning Bhagavatam class. Abhay Charan Prabhu, if you can share Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita reading for this morning. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai. I'll read this today. A daily sketch reported Krishna people dine out at John and Yoko's place. A photograph showed the devotees seated out of doors taking prasadam. Lunchtime at Tittenhurst Park, stately home of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and some of the Lennon's house guests take their places in yesterday's sunshine. The picnickers are followers of the Indian Swami, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charana Bhaktivedanta. They have adopted the ways of the feast, from their clothes and shaven heads right down to the Indian curry they eat with their fingers, which is all rather out of character for a place like Tittenhurst Park, which cost John £150,000 and covers 60 acres of most exclusive Sunning Hill near Royal Ascot Racecourse. Prabhupada and people, and John and Yoko and theirs made an odd combination. 2 days after Prabhupada's arrival at Tittenhurst, John and Yoko had flown to Canada to perform with the Plastic Ono Band at Toronto's Rock and Roll Revival at Varsity Stadium. In October, John and Yoko had recorded a wedding album and began work on the film Rock and Roll Circus, and John had recorded Gold Turkey. Although John was usually shy, the devotees working at the main house found him open-hearted and generous with his position. He invited the devotees to stay permanently at Tittenhurst and farm. Whatever he had, he said he would share with them. One day, Yoko asked Yamuna if a devotee couple could stand in for her and John on stage at a London theatre. She and John had previously appeared. They are dressed in only a burlap bag and were supposed to make another appearance, but Yoko thought perhaps a devotee couple could take their place. The crowd, she said, might never know the difference, and even if they did, it would be hilarious publicity stunt for the devotees. Politely declining, Yamuna explained why devotees could never do such a thing. When she told Srila Prabhupada, he was adamant, none of his disciples would go. For days afterward, he condemned this sensuality. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Prabhupada Ramitra ki jai. So such a wonderful pastimes. You can see how Prabhupada was hosted by John Lennon and his wife Yoko. And yes, they give, of course, with George Harrison, they give such a very good publicity to Hare Krishna mantra all over the world. And I must say, I am one of the beneficiaries of that publicity because I was studying at that time. And one of the top of the charts was Hare Krishna mantra. And I would listen to this once in a while. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, and thank you, John Lennon and the Beatles. Hare Krishna. So now we'll go on to today's verse. Uh, I'll share the verse for you. So today's verse is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto. Okay, today's verse here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 6, verse number 4. I'll recite first and then everybody can take turn. Nityam dadati kamasya sidram tam anuye rashaya yogina krita mastaya patyu jeva pumchali nityam dadati kamasya sidram tam anuye araya yogina krita mastaya patyu jeva pumchali. Anybody else would like to recite?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Nityam dadadi kamasya chidram tam anuye araya yogina krita mutrasya patuir jaiva pumshali. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else would like to?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I am also trying.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Nityam dadati kamasya chidram tamunuye raya yoginaha krita maitrasya pattur jaiva pumschali. Hare Krishna.
Anybody else would like to?
Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mother, go ahead.
Nityam dadati kamosha chidram tamunuye rayaha yoginaha kritamoitrasya potyurjayeva pumschali. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Very nice. Anybody else before we go to?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam.
Mataji, go ahead. Thank you so much.
Nityam dadhati kamasya cha chidram tam ayuye areha yogina kritamaitrasya patyu jayeva pumschali.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you.
Nityam dadati Nityam dadati kamasya chidram tam anuye arayah yogina krita mitrasya patyojayaye pumschali. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Anybody else? Or we go to the synonyms. Anybody would like to do the synonyms?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Nityam always, dadati gives, kamasya of last, chidram facility, tam that last, anu following ye those arayaha enemies, yoginaha of the yogis or persons trying to advance in spiritual life. Krita Maitrasya, having put faith in the mind. Pattu, of the husband. Jaya Eva, like the wife. Pumschali, who is unchaste or easily carried away by other men. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Baji. Anybody would like to do this translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhu, go
An
ahead.
unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramour, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. Prabhupada, Vaishnava, anybody would like to?
May I, Prabhuji, please?
Sure, sure.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this way, the word Pumschali refers to a woman who is really carried away by men. Such a woman is never to be trusted. Unfortunately, in the present age, women are never controlled. According to the direction of the Shastras, women are never to be given freedom. When a woman must be strictly controlled by her father. When she is young, she must be strictly controlled by her husband. And when she is old, she must be controlled by her elderly sons. If she is given independence and allowed to mingle unrestrictedly with men, she will be spoiled. A spoiled woman, being manipulated by paramours, might even kill her husband. This example is given here because a yogi desiring to get free from material conditions must always keep his mind under control. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that in the morning, our first business should be to beat the mind with shoes 100 times. And before going to bed, to beat the mind 100 times with a broomstick. In this way, one's mind can be kept under control. An uncontrolled mind and an unchaste wife are the same. An unchaste wife can kill her husband at any time, and an uncontrolled mind, followed by lust, anger, greed, madness, envy, and illusion, can certainly kill the yogi. When the yogi is controlled by the mind, he falls down into the material condition. One should be very careful of the mind, just as a husband should be careful of a unchaste wife. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Oh, so nice reading. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnana Trimidasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvai Namaha. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pstaya Bhutale Shrimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Namini. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pstaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nivishesha Shunivadi Prashyatade Satarani. Excuse me. So we'll start reading. So this is a very nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are here discussing from the previous chapter, which was instruction by Lord Rishabdev to his 100 sons. And here the conversation is going between Parishit Maharaj and his spiritual master, Sukadeva Goswami. So a bit of a recap. What we've seen that in the previous chapter, Rishabdev had given his sons instruction on many topics. And it's a very, very instructive chapter in the Bhagavatam. There are so many very important verses which Srila Prabhupada used to quote very often. So in the public place where all the Brahmanas and others were assembled, Lord Rishabdev instructed his sons in the matter of devotional service and other topics. I'll just give it a summary. 1 second. So in that chapter, it is stated that a human being should not work hard like dogs and hawks for sense gratification. The human life is specially meant for revival of a relationship with the Supreme Lord, and to this end, all kinds of austerities and penances should be accepted. So Rishabh's quite first instruction, very powerful instruction, said, no, the human life is then not meant for working like hawks and dogs, but is meant for revival of a relationship with the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And then he gives more description about the austerities one should perform, and after this he gives his kingdom to his elder son Bharat Maharaj, and he become Avadhuta. Quite interesting. So in this beginning of this chapter, Parikshit Maharaj is quite anxious to know that although Lord Rishabdev has become Avadhuta and he obtained all the mystic powers, all the 8 mystic powers, but he had disregarded them. He was saying, why an advanced devotee he's got so much mystic powers in his adopted life of Avadhuta, where he's been spat upon, mistreated, people are speaking foully to him, so many distractions, but he's not exhibiting his mystic powers, he's tolerating all this. And then he said, how is that possible? Why did Lord Rishabdev this? And then Sukadeva Goswami instructing in verse 2 and onwards, he says that the main issue in this chapter is about mind control. So he says when a migrati or a hunter captures live birds, and he keeps a very intense eyes on the birds so they do not escape. So in a similar way, Sukadeva Goswami explaining, the devotee who has obtained all the devotional service and also and the siddhis should never be inattentive. We should always keep an eye on the mind, because mind is very flickering and very difficult to control. And then in the next couple of verses, we see that Sukadeva Goswami is expanding on this theme of mind control. He says, like, big rishis and munis like Saurabh Rishi and others, they had undergone strict austerities under very severe conditions, but just when they were to attain the supreme goal, they were distracted by Menaka and other people, and their whole devotional service study was gone haywire. So it's the mind is very important to control. Of course, the previous speakers, yesterday we have Mani Bahiram Prabhu, and previous to that we had His Grace Jai Srila Prabhu expanded on this theme. Jai Srila Prabhu mentioned that at least for good mind control and good sadhana and devotional service, first requirement is that one should be in a healthy condition. When a person is not in a healthy condition, it's very difficult to devotional service. So he says the health to keep the soul and the body together in a healthy condition is a prerequisite for devotional service. Then he also mentioned that one should be properly situated. At least minimum conditions should be there for maintaining good environment. And one should be not so much anxiety to earn extra money and things. So at least minimally well situated to carry out the sadhana. So that was, and yesterday, of course, Mani Vihiram Prabhu expanded on some of the other issues, reality check and other ideas. So in this verse today, which we are discussing now, we see that Parikshit Maharaj is comparing the flickering mind to the unchaste wife. How unchaste wife can mislead the husband and take the husband and all the family to ruination just because the mind is not controlled. So Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami are discussing this thing, and this comparison is made. So he says, unchaste woman is compared to yogi who does not restrain its mind. And this results in enemies like lust, anger, and greed, which will kill the yogi. So yogi who's not restrained, who's not control his mind, is in a very precarious position, because from uncontrolled mind, so many things take place like lust, anger, and which will the end of yogi's sadhana or yogi's austerity. So, and here, and then Prabhupada in the purpose says that those who are materially attached to women and sense gratification eventually become entangled in material consciousness, and then you have to take repeated births, and there's all these things followed: birth, origin, disease, and death and disease. So this is here it says that if one is not controlling the mind, then it leads to so many unpredictable consequences, and can go, because then the person become materially contaminated, his consciousness is derailed, and then again the one goes in a cycle of birth, death, and all disease. So, excuse me. So how does one control the mind? Of course, we have previously dwelt on this verse before. It's called in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, which is called Dhyana Yoga. This very question is being asked by Arjuna Maharaj, and Krishna has explained this in this verse. So let me share that verse. Share. Okay, share now. Okay. Bhagavad Gita 6:33. So in this verse 6:33, Arjuna Vacha, Yam Yogas Sat Praktha Samyana Madhusudana Etasyaham Na Praishyami Chanchalam Hi Sitam Siram. The translation is like this. Arjuna asks, "Oh Madhusudana, the system yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady." Chanchana Himana Krishna. This after Lord Krishna instruct Arjuna how to do yoga and attain samadhi, because Arjuna Maharaj is a warrior. He said this is very impractical. So he's asking in the next verse, verse 34, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, Pramadhi Balavan Tritham, Dashyam Nigram Manye, Vayur Iva Su Duskaram. And then we have the translation here. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh Krishna, and to subdue it, I think is more difficult than controlling the mind, controlling the wind. So here, Arjuna is very, very sharp and very blunt, and he's telling Krishna the system of yoga here enunciated, how to get samadhi, is very difficult, because the main issue is the mind. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. He says to subdue the mind, he says, it's more difficult than subduing the wind. Such a strong, Arjuna Maharaj is being very, very serious and very blunt about it. So in verse 35, so Lord Krishna gives the solution. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamyasya Mahabaho Mano Durkidam Chalam Abhyasena tu Kontiya Viryagyana Cha Grihati. Okay, translation. Lord Krishna said, O mighty son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and detachment. So Lord Krishna also says that, of course, the mind is very, very difficult to curb because the mind is restless, obstinate, and very difficult. But he says there's a possibility, and he said these two keywords by abhyasa and vairagya, by practice, abhyasa by practice, and vairagya by detachment. So these are two keywords. So in this verse too, Sukadeva Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj to curb the mind. It's very difficult. It's just like the unchaste women who can distract the whole family. Then so he gives this to Vairagya and Abhyasa. Excuse me. So in this verse, Srila Prabhupada explains it. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as explained by Arjuna, is accepted by the person of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, distraying the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc., etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagement is sharing about Krishna. So Lord Krishna is giving this solution of Abhyasa and Vairagya. And here Prabhupada explaining, to control the mind, the first thing is practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. Even you see all the big athletes, sports people, with the cricketers, soccer players, the coaches are always making it practice. Even the most professional sports person is always practicing, because his practice makes perfect. So Krishna is giving the same thing. He said to engage in devotional service in terms of celibacy, living in a sacred place. It is difficult, but just by practice, one can control the mind. And what is the best practice? And here Prabhupada explaining is to always engage in hearing about Krishna. This is the clue. So the first and foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. Only by devotional service and constant practice, one can steady the mind. So where the mind is restless, going here and there, we have to bring it back and engage in this 9 personal devotional service. First and foremost is hearing. So mind can go anywhere, here, there, it's difficult. So unless one takes the mind back to devotional service, it's going to be very difficult. And then Prabhupada said, one can easily learn Vairagya. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can easily learn Vairagya. So Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. So here Prabhupada giving very practical example. Vairagya means detachment, but what is detachment? He says, Vairagya means detachment from matter, anything not related to Krishna, and engaging of the mind in spirit. So when the mind is in material consciousness, and to bring it back to Krishna consciousness, or engage the mind in service to the Lord, that is called Vairagya. The mind may be all over the place, but to bring it back and to the Lord service, or Lord to the Spirit, is called Vairagya. It's such a nice explanation. That mind and the Vairagya just doesn't mean you give up everything and just sit down in one place and then you say, okay, I'm Vairagi, I'm giving up everything, I'm just wearing one torn kurta or dhoti, sitting in one place, no one can disturb me, so I'm a Vairagi. No, Prabhupada said that's maybe at the ground or zero position, but a better position is to be always engaged in hearing about Krishna. This achievement is called Parinasunubhava, or spiritual satisfaction. It is just like feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. So by practicing abhyasa and vairagya, one comes to the stage called attachment, called Paramasanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. And Prabhupada is giving this Paramasanubhava, a spiritual satisfaction, is very subtle, but one can actually feel it. And Prabhupada gives a practical example. As this person is very hungry, as soon as he starts eating, he gets three things. First, he gets satisfaction, then his hunger goes away, start going away, and he also gain the strength to do some more work. So similarly, one who is doing devotional service sometimes might be not very perceptible. Eventually, you can see that when he becomes very self-satisfied, all the outside material things are not hindering him. He becomes very fixed in his sadhana, and internally he's getting this self-satisfaction, and that is the key to devotional service. Somebody might say, somebody doing so much devotional service, how do you know you're going to the right path? This is the key. One should feel self-satisfaction, spiritual self-satisfaction, by doing devotional service. So this is the Prabhupada says, similarly, by discharging devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objective. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mind, mad mind. Eating the foods of Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada, of course, dwells more on the aspect of how mind is taken away by different activities. His best treatment is to always be engaged in the loving service of the Lord, and of course, appropriate diet, which I'm coming to later on. On the purpose, Srila Prabhupada had mentioned that the yogi can be compared to the unchaste wife, because the wife or unchaste woman who can take away the person in a different direction. Let's read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramas, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramas. We have these examples in our scripture. We have like Bilamangal Thakur. Initially, he was very, very much attached to women, so much so that he had so many challenges. Even then, he went to meet his this unchaste woman, and when she rebuked him, then he became took a different path. Even then, he was still attached, and then he self-blinded himself. Then he became a great devotee. So we can see unchaste women can be very, very captivating, and because their mind is to snare unsuspecting devotees or men and earn more money, and by their action, many people get astray from the path of devotional service. And here Prabhupada mentioned that sometimes it so happens that the parama is so attached to the unchaste women that they eventually get rid of the obstacle of the husband. They eventually get together, kill the husband. It can be very, very, very violent action coming place. So this is how the mind can take place. So here Prabhupada is explaining same thing can happen to a yogi who doesn't control his mind. The mind is not restrained, because unchaste woman can take the parama to urination. Similarly, a yogi who does not restrain his mind can also go to urination. He loses all his yogic powers, and of course his sadhana, his take birth again in this cycle of birth and death. So very good comparison. So let us look at some of the factors that affects the mind, how to control mind, how does mind get astray? What are some of the factors? Here in the previous verse in Bhagavad Gita 6.35, we just read, Krishna said he emphasized two things. Says practice, abhyasa, and vairagya. And Prabhupada mentioned towards the end of the purport that the eating unoffered food is one of the issues that can affect the mind. What happens is that somebody who has cooked something and their consciousness goes into cooking. And once somebody partakes of that food, which is not offered to the Lord, that consciousness also somehow shared by the person who eats it. So somebody, of course, somebody in a very angry mood or in a very sensual mood cook something and is not offered the Lord, and somebody, a devotee or a person who doing sadhana, partakes of this food, that consciousness goes in the person who is eating it, and then it affects the mind. The mind becomes restless because it's got some contamination from association of the food cooked by a person who is not in a very good in a mind control, in a sensual mood. So very, very important that one should always cook whatever we cook should be offered. Should be cooked in a very devotional manner, and then offer the Lord in a very with love and devotion. And once partake the prasadam, then the mind becomes much more controlled. So very, very dangerous eating anything which is not offered, especially if somebody is cooked from outside. Some devotees might think, oh, if you go outside and we take food which is vegetarian, but this is also very dangerous practice because it affects the mind. And this is not actually, this is how the mind affects the food is also being scientifically studied. There was a study by a Japanese scientist, and he boiled 2-3 different types of water in 2-3 different pots. In one, while he was boiling the water, he very what you call passionate music, rock and roll, very agitating. And the other pot, he boiling the water, he played very devotional style of music. And when this water was cooled down and frozen, he examined the crystal of the ice. And it was surprisingly fine. The one which the water had been boiled while very passionate music was being played, was the crystals were all over the place, not symmetric and very disarranged. But where the crystals, the water from the crystals from the water that was boiled while devotional music was played was very even, very harmonious. So he said, this just a consciousness is going into the water and affecting the symmetry or the dimension or the orientation of the molecules. And this shows that the mind, although one might not believe it, but it is also now being more detailedly studied how the mind affects, the consciousness affect the food. So very, very important. Devotees, we do not, all of devotees here on the forum knows very well, but this is the point, it's been scientifically proven that food affects the mind. So one of the mind control is first always eat, cook nicely, offer to the Lord with love and devotion, then partake on the prasadam. The next, the factor that affects the mind is the time and place, where the environment is not very clean and congenial. That affects the mind, just the environment. I have a practical experience of this. In Fiji, we had a neighbor, and the neighbor had 2 grown-up twin boys, and they were always fighting, agitating. So the mother told me, one of these, say, if you are going to India, to Vrindavan, take one of my boys there. Maybe he become more, because he's very restless, fighting all the time, maybe he become more calm. So I took him to Vrindavan. Before that, he was always, mind is here, there, playing music, looking out. But as soon as he entered Vrindavan, I was surprised his mood completely changed. He was changing all the time. Even when we were staying in the rest house in Krishna Balaram temple, and he will come a bit late. And next morning I said, "Why did you come late? What were you doing?" He said, "I was chanting." He said, "How many rounds did you chant?" He said, "I chanted 106 rounds and 110." Whole day he was chanting, chanting, chanting. Everywhere I go, he's just chanting, chanting. But as soon as we left Vrindavan, and just as soon as the train left Vrindavan area and we went to the town where his grandparents, his family were staying, he couldn't chant. So then he said, I told him what happened. I went to the village and I got sick. And I said, how is chanting going? So I can't chant. And my mind is all over the place. So I was surprised just by being in a holy place, and the effect of the place is so powerful that just somebody who's not even trained automatically starts chanting. And this person was chanting so many rounds more than me all the time. Everywhere we go, he was chanting. So the place is very much important aspect of mind control. Some of the devotees might see that when you go outside, some people or a mall or some place where the smell is not very good, the people are not very clean, it's very distracting. So that's why we need to keep our house like a temple, clean, very congenial, so we can chant nicely. So this is the place also affect. Of course, the other one is mental health. One of the things Jaisala Prabhu mentioned, that one should be socially and financially should be well situated. So there's not much stress. What's going to happen tomorrow? Whether I'm able to pay my loan or pay my mortgage? What's going to happen in my family? These are stressful. So the minimal living standards are arranged, then the person becomes very easy in the mind. It's not distracted. Of course, the minimal living standards are different for people in the West or the people in India. We might say people here might live what may be a slightly higher standard of living, materially. People in India might be okay to sleep on a mat, on the floor, on a hole or something like this. But these are relatives. The idea is the person should be reasonably well situated, that he is not stressed out. He can chant. The mind is very steady because basic things are already taken care of. So mental health is very important. Of course, then last one is the devotee association. Is very, very important. If devotees, somebody loses devotee association is like a fence. Because we are under observation by devotees, another person, somebody willing to do something not devotee devotional, then he gets, oh, this person, we hear is under scanner. So he'll internally, by the good vibes of the senior devotees, his sadhana will go up and he can control himself. So association, not only physical association of the devotees, but association with Srila Prabhupada books, his kirtan, is also good association. And bad association, my special master, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, used to say that having a TV in the house is a very bad association. You see, one day he said, if a stranger comes, is contaminated, and he's come with 2-3 girlfriends, and you want to enter your house, you want to let the person come in. When somebody watches the TV and all this nonsense coming in, and you are letting them in your house, and you are sitting on a sofa and enjoying this scene, and then you say you are inviting them inside your house, and you are associating with them. This will be alienation of your mind. So you see all these external things like TV, film, social media, reading romantic novels or literature not related to Krishna, or newspapers, listening to these news, basic things are also very disturbing the mind, because feel, it gets impression, get filled in our mind, and of course affects the mind eventually. So these are some of the factors that affect the mind. So it's the Vairagya part. Vairagya part, which Krishna say, Vairagya, detachment from material things. So these are some of the material things we have to avoid. And then, of course, main thing is practice. So in these verses, Srila Prabhupada is really quoting his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. He said, the devotee should be very strict. When he gets up, should be hitting his head with his champal or shoes 100 times. And before he goes to bed, he should be doing the same thing with his broomstick. So this is like analogy that one should be very, very chaste in doing sadhana and, of course, associating with devotees. So the uncontrolled mind will lead to disaster for the devotees. Very, very important. So being chaste to Srila Prabhupada movement is also very, very important. So mind, when his mind is chaste, the sadhana is very strong, and a devotee gets this spiritual strength to, not physical strength, but spiritual strength to control all these things in a very difficult, challenging time. One can be very well situated without being distracted. So strong sadhana means strong chanting, strong service, and loving relation with the devotees, and then this protection by the devotees. So one time somebody asked one sannyasi, if the devotees going out to book distribution, they are coming under this challenging time because there's so many, they deal with so many different types of people. So how do you deal with it? The women, they might not be well dressed. People might be drunkard. They're approaching. You are in a very like a war zone. So how do you control? So this sannyasi answered very nicely. He said, when somebody is going out to do Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan Yagna, then that person get protection by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There might be, if your mind is very focused on book distribution or outreach preaching, one is, just because somebody is doing this yagna, fighting the Maya, there's protection from back, you get like a backup troops, or is protecting the frontline people. So this protection is coming from Lord Chaitanya. So it is a challenge to go out, even at workplace. But once we have a strong sadhana and we are doing Lord Chaitanya's mission, we're doing Srila Prabhupada's mission, then we get their mercy and we get their protection. We are always protected that way. So, and then towards the end, Prabhupada said, the downside of uncontrolled mind is that eventually uncontrolled mind is followed by lust, anger, greed, madness, envy, and illusion. So that can certainly kill the yogi. So very, very difficult situation. So, so in this verse, let's read the verse again. An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by the paramours, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, greed, and they will undoubtedly kill the yogi. So very, very important points. When I read this translations first time, it came to my mind that who is a very good example of this. We have this Brahman who went to the jungle to collect the flowers for deity worship. Then he saw this Sudra and Sudrani in a very compromising position, and his mind completely went berserk just by the sight, because the sign, he was a very advanced Brahman. Just by the sight, he could not take away this scene and control his mind. And then, of course, what followed, lust, anger, greed, eventually, of course, he was saved. So it's a very, very difficult situation if somebody's mind is not controlled. So I'll sum up today's main thing. So in this verse, what we learned today is that yogi or a devotee who is not discerning his mind, it leads to very serious consequences in terms of compromising one's bhakti, and then, of course, getting into material consciousness, which lead to repeated birth and death. So mind is the key. The senses are centered around the mind. In the Katha Upanishad, we know the body there's a comparison, like the five horses are compared to the five senses. The lagam or the range compared to intelligence, and the driver is compared to the chair is like the body, and the passenger is the soul. The senses are compared to the horses, and the driver is the intelligence, and the range is the mind. So all the senses are centered around the mind. If these senses, if the mind doesn't control, then the horse will take you everywhere. So mind control is very important. And we saw from chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, Krishna teaches us how to restrain the mind, control the mind by abhyasa and vairagya. Then we saw some of the factors that affects the mind control, the mind, eating food not cooked by devotees and not offered to the Lord, bad association, non-devotee association, and that includes TV, film, social media, etc., etc. A weak sadhana, also place of devotion, a place also fixed the mind, mental health, and then we saw that by doing Srila Prabhupada mission preaching, even in a challenging situation at the workplace or outside, we get the protection of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. So these are the key points, that the mind is very important for bhakti. The control of mind is the best friend, also worst enemy. Just like fire is a good friend but a bad master. And then we have the factors that affect the mind, and the key controlling point of mind is abhyasa and vairagya, and some of the factors that affect the mind. And by preaching Srila Prabhupada's mission, one get protection by Lord Chaitanya and Mahaprabhu to protect us from unwavering mind. So these are some of the key points today. So, dear devotees, I'm finished here. If anybody got any reflection or any points or queries, please feel free to come forward and we can discuss. Thank you so much for your patience. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam.
Dharma Prabhuji.
Thank you very much for enlightening this text so nicely, building up the points that really makes us to understand the do's and don'ts, and which really clearly identifies which are the sources of disturbance of mind and how to control mind. Systematically explained about how it starts very beginning with our food. As you said, if we don't offer the food to the Lord, that is going to hamper our consciousness. Type of food and the state of mind when you are cooking the food. Non-devotees association, time and place, mental conditions, these are some of the points that really affects our mind while we are doing the activities in our daily life. As this 634 of Bhagavad Gita says, practice and detachment, which is actually real guideline Krishna is giving to Arjun, how to control the mind. So very important that we follow the guidance given by Srila Prabhupada, as you mentioned, and the best way is the 5S model Prabhupada has given, that is sadhana, shraddhaya, sadachar, sangha and seva. Those are the 5 ways how we can control the mind, right from the beginning of the day to the end of the night. So Prabhupada has systematically given us the whole day program so that we can control our mind in every stage, though we are worldly connected to our regular activities like office work and other activities. Still, we can manage our mind to focus on the devotional service. As Jaishila Prabhu was explaining on text 2, this body need to be maintained in a proper way and mind to be stimulus to the proper sequences, and we need to be situated in a particular social order, and the last was the sadhana. So if we maintain all these things systematically, automatically mind will be under control. Otherwise, the example as given we see from Ajamil, Billamangal Thakur, all this happens. Even though we are in an advanced stage, that will affect your mind if it is not properly maintained through Shastras. And the, and the opposite example we see are this Namacharya. So these are the example gives us the lessons how to control the mind. So the 5S model, which Srila Prabhupada often exercise in his mission, that is again sadhana shraddhaya, that means regularly practicing our bhakti yoga. Shraddhaya means study of his books, sadachar is Vaishnava etiquette, and good association, that is devotees association, and the last is the service. If you follow these 5 sequences in the day of every day of our life, and that will help us to control our mind. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Jessica Prabhu, for your reflection and summary. Well summarized. Anybody else? Still got a few minutes?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanma Pranam.
No problem, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, here it is mentioned unchaste woman. What about unchaste man here? Is how is it different? Why is it only for women's and not men's? Because in this day and age, even men's are like that.
Yeah, Prabhu, thank you for bringing this point. It's a very good point. In the Shastra, the women are considered a weak position. They have to be protected. Here, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, I forgot to mention that the women has to always be protected. They are in a, they can be emotionally, can be blackmailed, can be easily be misled, and then can ruin the whole family. So here, of course, unchaste woman is given an example. Of course, I understand there's also unchaste men too. And conversely, they can also mislead women. So, but the more emphasis given on not all the women, but here Prabhupada is mentioning about unchaste woman in this particular verse, unchaste woman who is not well situated, just trying to make money by using her body. So because the women are in a weaker position, they need to be protected. As Prabhupada mentioned, when they are young, the father has to protect them. When they are married, the husband has to protect them. And when they are older, the sons have to protect them. Because if one is not protecting the women, they can go astray, and then we have the Varna Shankara system, where there are people, the children are born who are out of wedlock, as we see happening now, and the whole society will go haywire. The whole purpose of dharma will go haywire. There will be no protection, and the mind become unchaste. And then what happens is that the basic principle of human life is to go back to God is not even mentioned. So we can see that so many unchaste women, and we have having multiple husbands or marrying multiple times, multiple children, and it's very, very precarious position. So they, unless they're protected. Here, like in Islam, this is strictly followed. And one time I asked one Maharaj, why in Islamic countries the women's face is covered? Then his answer was straightforward. He said the men are uncontrolled. They are very passionate. So just for the protection of women is done. And women are easily misled. So they need protection. I think that is one of the reasons why it is mentioned. Of course, the individual is material consciousness, because the Pragati and the Purusha is Lord Krishna is the enjoyer. And Pragati, we are also the living entities are not are Pragati to be enjoyed. And when they lose this position, everything becomes disharmony in the society. So just for the protection of the society, protection of the dharma, the support of the protection is very, very important. Where this is not being done, as we see in the West, this is leading to very, very serious situation. Eventually, the whole society will break down, and then will be nation of civilization. The family is not protected, the women are not protected, children are not protected, elderly are not protected, and the family units breaks down. Eventually, the society will break down, the whole civilization will break down. We have the multiple example of Roman Empire. Then we have even the Western Empire civilization breaking down. Basically, this is the root cause. So the scriptures very, very strongly emphasize the protection of women. Hopefully this makes bit of sense. Hare Krishna.
Yes, yes, thank you very much, Prabhu. Well, I had already understood this before, but then I just wanted a little bit of idea about, because today's day and age, everybody, you see, the women just meet men's, like, even their husband is not the husband, they just hug the person, and they all do all those things here in Kiwi culture, which is really very, very bad. Mm.
Yeah, because
Anyway,
yeah.
thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Much appreciate.
Thank you. Anybody else before we end the class? Okay, doesn't seem to be any comment or reflection. We'll end the class here. Vancha kalpatarubhescha
कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
नमो नमः।
अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय।
Is this Prabhu ki
जय
प्रभु की जय।
Gaur
श्री प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय
गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि।
वंदे हरे हरे
All
all
glory to
praise to the
assembled.
Lord is
Hare
Hare.
Krishna।
कृष्ण